This crowd comes in, I'll have on this Western shooter tonight. The line of yeah, man, it's Jim.
It's a backpass with Ross on the mic. Talking for these stories, keeping vibes real tight. Legends and laughter, you know the drill. Backpass with Ride, football, better and chill. From SG to the region, we cover the game. Big names, small clubs, the passion's the same. Stories from the pitch and the ones untold. Backpass with Ride, where the beautiful game unfolds.
Welcome to Backpass with Ras, and this is your host Ras. I hope you're all well, hale and hearty wherever you are listening in to us and watching us on this new episode. So for this episode, it's a bit of a special request. It came in through X, otherwise famously known as Twitter. After posting the episode on the SG60, I received a DM, or rather an offer to speak about Chonburi when they were playing in the Singapore Cup in 2006. I took up the offer. So here we are with our guest today, Mr. Dale Farrington, who has his own podcast called A Thai Football Podcast. So how are you, Dale? And thank you for reaching out to us.
You're very welcome. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. Some very happy memories of coming over to Singapore in 2006. Came on two occasions for the semi-final second leg and then for the final in November. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Before we talk about Chonburi, tell us about yourself first, Dale, about your podcast. What's it all about? How do you get inspiration? When do you start? All that.
Well, the podcast has been going for just over 2 years now. It was actually the idea of one of my good friends, Rob Bernard. He's another big Thai football fan, and we've known each other for quite a long time. And he just suggested one day, would I like to try co-hosting a podcast with him? So I thought I'd give it a go. It's probably one of the only things I haven't done in terms of promoting Thai football. I used to run a Chonburi website, which I started in 2009. And I've done a couple of blogs as well about Chonburi. I've appeared on ESPN, Star Sports, promoting Thai football. So the podcast thing was new to me. So we set it up. And it's been going ever since, going from strength to strength, really. The original idea was to get as many people involved as we could. We wanted to get lots and lots of fans and players, coaches, etc. Anybody with any kind of connection to Thai football on there. And I'm pleased to say we've achieved that. You know, we're always expanding. We're always getting new people coming along. So we're very happy with it.
Okay. With regards to the Chonburi website, is it a fan site or the official Chonburi website?
Yeah, it was purely independent, a fan site in English. When Thai football became very popular in 2009, quite a few of us started producing these English language websites because there was very little information available back in those days. Not only in English, but in Thai as well, but even less in English. So there was a group of us who came up with, there was one for Nakhon Ratchasima, a couple for Mung Tong, Bangkok Glass, Thai Port. And we had this nice little community where we all kind of supported each other and helped each other out, totally independent of the clubs. And it was a really good time. It was great to be involved in that. And some of the people who were running the other blogs and websites are still really close friends now. So we formed some very strong friendships back in the day.
All right. And what's your connection with Chonburi? Why Chonburi? Why Thai football?
Well, I moved to Thailand in 1997, early 97. And obviously I've always been a football fan. And one of the first things that I wanted to do when I got there was check out the local football scene, which, as many people know, wasn't that interesting back then. All the clubs were based in Bangkok or around Bangkok, mainly representing companies or one of the armed forces or the police force. So that didn't really appeal to me all that much, but I did start going to watch the national team. So I'd try and get to see them as often as I could. And I was still playing myself at the time. We used to play for the school that I was teaching at. We used to play every Friday. We'd try and arrange fixtures against local teams. Then I got involved in the Bangkok Casuals League. And as I was coming to the end of my own playing career, I thought I'd look into watching Thai football again. And I just happened to notice that there was a club based in my nearest city, which was Chonburi. So I thought I'd pop along and check them out. Anyway, when I got there to what I thought was the ground, it turned out that it wasn't. So I started asking people. I was just riding around on my motorbike and nobody knew. Nobody had any idea there was a football club based there or where they played or anything. So I eventually, just purely by chance, I think, from memory, I just stumbled across the ground over by the seaside. This was the old Chonburi Municipal Stadium, and there was a match on. They were playing, I think it was Nakhon Pathom. I could be wrong. I'll have to check that. But I went in. There were about 30 other people there. It was quite an entertaining match. I mean, nothing special. But then I got chatting because obviously being a foreigner, it was quite a novelty. I mean, this would have been 2002, so I was getting quite a few strange glances, people wondering who I was. And luckily, one of the other fans at the match that day could speak pretty good English. And he gave me his phone number. And from then on, we'd talk to each other and he'd keep me in touch with when fixtures were taking place. Because as I said, getting any information was quite difficult back then. And obviously, within a couple of years, the Thai League had come on leaps and bounds, and Chonburi were one of the top clubs. So it was quite good to be involved from the start, pretty much, I think it was.
Okay, and how's your Thai, first of all? I got to ask that. How you get by in Thailand?
My Thai's much better now. I mean, this was in the early days. I mean, I'd always make an effort to speak Thai, but it was useful having someone who could speak English, to be honest. He was able to explain how things worked and when the games were. So yeah, I mean, I get by. I spend quite a lot of time in England now, so I'm kind of splitting my time between Thailand and England. So it's probably a little rusty when I'm over here because I don't get that much opportunity to use it.
Yeah.
But obviously, it comes back to me pretty quickly when I'm back in Thailand.
Okay, so you shuttle between England and Thailand.
Yeah, that's right. It's a long story, long, complicated story. But COVID was really at the heart of it. I had to come back to England for family reasons, and it was early 2020. And then obviously COVID happened, and I kind of got stuck here. So the way things have worked out is now I'm spending some of my time in England and some of my time back in Thailand. Not ideal, but I get by.
Look. Yeah. And okay, you spoke about watching the Thai national team, but were you aware of how strong the Thai national team is in this region?
Well, at the time, they were kind of going through a bit of a rough period. There was the controversial game against, was it Indonesia, where both teams were trying to lose Indonesia, to avoid playing? I think it was Vietnam, wasn't it, in the semi-final? So that was one of the prominent stories. There was quite a lot going on behind the scenes that wasn't that great. I mean, the highlight for me back in those early days, and I've spoken about this many times before on different podcasts, was the Asian Games in '98 and the quarter-final win against South Korea, which I'm getting goosebumps now. The hairs on my arms are standing up just remembering it, because that was such a fantastic night. I don't think, I mean, I've been a football fan all my life, and that night it's up there as one of the best nights I've ever had watching football at any level. It was just fantastic. The stadium was packed. I mean, it was overpacked, if we're being honest. They clearly sold more tickets than there were spaces, but it was wonderful. And like I said, then there were a couple of incidents where Thai football kind of didn't do itself any favours. And then when Peter With came, I think that was a huge turning point. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he did. I mean, it's hard to explain to anybody who wasn't watching Thai football at that time just what a mess it was in, and the national team in particular. And he kind of brought some stability. He had a fair amount of success. And I think that was, again, a great bunch of players. I remember those guys. Zico was playing, Warrawut was playing. They were fantastic. Turdsack, obviously, they had a great bunch of players, and he managed to get the best out of them. So that was a fantastic period once Peter came in, and for a couple of years we started to establish ourselves and probably set the seeds for what we have now. In terms of being one of the bigger nations in the region, I think.
And going back to your podcast as well, you mentioned that you've managed to get other stakeholders involved in your podcast, interviewing them. Are those interviews in English or in Thai?
Yeah, it's all in English. Yeah.
Okay. So these guys are fans that can speak English, players that can speak English, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. We've interviewed a lot of players. I mean, foreign players, Thai players. The fans tend to be mainly English-speaking supporters. In fact, I've just done 2 this morning, actually, before we started chatting. So,
That's great. That's great.
yeah, and like I said earlier, that was the whole point when Rob and I started the podcast. We wanted to get as many people involved as we could. And it's so satisfying that, we're still getting people wanting to take part. It's great. And long may it continue, I think.
Yeah. I wish you well with your podcast. And let's get to the business that we're going to speak about today. Singapore Cup 2006. Chonburi as an invited team in the Singapore Cup. First of all, let's trace all the way back to the start of their journey in the Singapore Cup. How were you keeping track of what they were doing in the tournament?
Well, 2006 was our first season in the Thai Premier League. We didn't do particularly well. I think, from memory, we had a really strange record. We kind of only lost a couple of games, but only won a couple of games and drew the majority. But to answer your question, there were a couple of the lads who went to Chonburi. Obviously, crowds were very small back then, so we all kind of knew each other. We'd all travel to games together, quite often on the team bus to away games. They'd allow a group of fans on, and there were 2 of the lads who'd been to a couple of the matches in Singapore in the early rounds. And they become quite big celebrities in the Chonburi area on the back of this. It was quite unusual for people to travel any distance to watch the team. So they were full of stories. And obviously, once we got to the semi-final, more and more people were saying, yeah, we need to go across. So it was basically that first game. We didn't go to the first leg, but we'd made plans to go to the second leg, and it just kind of grew from there, really. So it was basically the core of the support at that time who travelled out for that second leg of the semi-final. But prior to that, it had been the 2 guys who'd been going to matches who'd kept us updated.
Can you just walk us through your first experience in the Singapore Cup semi-final? Your first experience in Singapore in that semi-final. Walk us through about that game. What do you remember of that match?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, we flew out from Don Muang, so this was September 2006, and like I say, there must have been about a dozen of us, I think, perhaps 12, 15 of us all travelling together. So we'd all, booked on the same flight. Now, I think there was one night we slept at the airport in Singapore. Now, I can't remember if that was on the way there or on the way back. I think it was the first night. We didn't have anywhere to stay, so we slept at the airport that first night. Didn't get much sleep, if I'm being honest. And then the following day was the day of the match. So we travelled to the hotel where the team was staying, because that's where we were going to stay that following night. We met up with the players and the staff in the hotel. We had gifts for them and everything. And I think as well, we just lost Kone Hamid. He'd played for Chonburi prior to that, during the season. Then he'd moved to one of the Singaporean clubs, but they'd allowed him to play for Chonburi in the Singapore Cup, because I think he played in the early rounds. And they said that he could carry on playing, and he was there. And so we'd got a little gift for him, because he'd, even though he was still part of the squad, he'd officially left the club. So we spent the day there. We also had a film crew follow us around from ESPN, because I'd been in touch with Julian Tuhig, who was working on Football Crazy at the time. So we'd arranged for them to come and follow us. So they did a few shots at the hotel. They came with us to the game. They interviewed the fans, a few snippets of the match. And so that was quite interesting. You know, a lot of the Thai speakers, luckily we had a couple of lads there who could speak English and Thai. So they were doing the interpreting. And, you know, this went out a couple of weeks later on ESPN and obviously, you know, gave Chonburi a bit more publicity. Mm-hmm. The match itself was pretty tight. I think we were leading from the first leg and we lost 1-0.
1-1 in the first leg.
Was it 1-1 in the first leg? I thought we'd won the first leg. And then it definitely went to penalties. I do remember that. It went to penalties and it was quite nerve-wracking. Prior to that, I don't think I'd ever experienced any of my clubs in a penalty shootout.
I've perhaps seen it. Experience your country in a penalty shootout.
Yeah. Well, I would have seen it at international level, but certainly not any of my clubs. Not that I can remember. It wasn't that common back in the day, so it was quite a nerve-wracking experience. But obviously, we won through, and then we went back to the hotel and we stayed at the same hotel as the team. And I think we were even on the same flight as the team back the following day. And then, of course, you know, we'd already started making plans to go back for the final in November. Mm-hmm. So we'd enjoyed it that much. And it was a completely different experience. You know, I think we were treated really, really well by the locals. They made us very, very welcome. That's something that really sticks in my mind. You know, I think there's a lot of curiosity as well. You know, this small group of people had travelled over from Thailand to watch a game of football. So that's something that I'll always remember. And Julian and the cameraman, whose name unfortunately I can't remember, they were great. They looked after us. Helped me get some beer into the stadium, which I don't think was allowed at the time. But they pulled a few. Yeah, they pulled a few strings and got me a couple of pints into the ground. So I'll always be grateful for that.
Was the interest piqued by the presence of a British man supporting a Thai club? Was there ever?
Yeah, I mean, it was. Yeah, it was. I mean, again, when I first started going, I never saw any other foreigners at games in Thailand. The only people I'd see would be either coaches or agents at other clubs. Chonburi did have a German coach, or a German ex-goalkeeper who was on the coaching staff, Franz, who became a really close friend of mine. So he was always around. But in terms of fans, yeah, I mean, even at Thai grounds, you know, I used to get some very strange looks, you know, people wondering why I was there. And I'd quite often get singled out and people wanting photographs. And, if there were any...
You became a celebrity on your own right, right?
I wouldn't go that far, but a curiosity, probably more than a celebrity. But yeah, I'd quite often be interviewed by people at matches, you know, if people were covering it and they felt brave enough to come and approach me and speak in English. And then, you know, a couple of years later, obviously more and more foreigners got into the game and started coming to matches, so it became less of a novelty, I guess.
Do you remember the hotel that you were staying in?
I can't remember the one for the semi-final. The final, we stayed at a very small hostel, because I remember it was one room, and I remember there were bunk beds in there. So again, you know, about 10, 12 of us had gone over and we were all in this one room, and it was this tiny little corridor, and we had a staircase leading up to it. And the only other people staying there at the time were a couple of Australian backpackers. I can't remember, I'm sorry. It was a long time.
No issues at all. I was thinking maybe for the final you would be holed up with the team as well in the same hotel.
Sadly not. Nothing that glamorous. No, but we didn't sleep at the airport on the second trip.
Yeah, at least that's
2 nights, because we arrived the day before the final and then we left the day after. So we had 2 nights at this hostel. And I can't even remember
much. Sorry, remember anything much about your opponents in the semi-final, Ballistic Khalsa?
Not really, if I'm being honest. I think we were more concerned about ourselves, and it had been quite a hectic day as well. Because, like I said, we'd slept at the airport, we'd gone straight to the hotel, mixed with the team, and then the film crew kind of were
Occupied you.
we had spent most of our time with them, so I didn't really have much opportunity to check out the opposition, I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
Now to the final. Final was exciting, to say the least. Leading 2-0, but unfortunately lost the final 3-2. What was that final like? A roller coaster of emotions. You mentioned there was only 10 to 12 of you that traveled from Thailand. I guess you were joined by other Thais based in Singapore in the stands.
Oh yeah. The final was fantastic. I mean, result aside, I mean, obviously on the night we were all absolutely disappointed, especially having gone 2-0 up to lose 3-2. But the whole occasion was just wonderful. I mean, there was a group of us, and then we were joined by hundreds, possibly thousands. I know that's probably an exaggeration. Certainly hundreds of Thai expat workers in the stadium who were all supporting Chonburi. And I remember the atmosphere was just fantastic from start to finish. But one thing that really sticks on my mind, above all the football, was what happened at half time.
Yeah.
Now, I can see by your action, you probably remember this. It's something I've never ever witnessed in a football ground before, and since, to be honest. I mean, they'd laid on half-time entertainment. So the Thai pop star Parmi, she was huge at the time, really popular in Thailand. So to get her was quite a coup. So her band had set up by the main stand. We were on the far side, a big open end, open stand, from what I can remember. Yep. And the band had set up on the far side, and they started as soon as the teams went off at half time. The band started playing, and she appeared, and she came prancing across the pitch while singing, and obviously made a beeline straight for us. So she's performing in front of us. A band are about 100 yards away on the other side of the ground. We're all throwing shirts and scarves at her and everything, and she's picking these up and waving them around. Anyway, this performance, it seemed to go on a lot longer than a normal half-time. And then I think Tampines came out for the second half, and there was no sign of Chonburi. Yeah. And then eventually the Chonburi players started drifting out again. Yeah. But there was still a delay, and nobody could really work out why. And then somebody realised that our goalkeeper wasn't there. And so there was this huge delay while everybody tried to find the goalkeeper. And we only found out sort of after the match, having asked a few people, that he'd apparently locked himself in the toilet in the dressing room and wasn't able to get out. So when everybody else came out, he was stuck in the toilet in the dressing room. And I don't know. I've got a video of the match, the whole night, and it'd be interesting to time how long that halftime break was. It probably went on longer than the game itself, if I'm being honest. Maybe given the result
in the toilet was hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, given the result, he probably should have stayed in the toilet, to be honest. I mean, conceded 3 goals late on. Yeah.
So let's talk about the match itself. What are your memories of the match itself? What were your feelings as well as the match progressed?
Well, I can remember us going 2-0 up, and we were feeling supremely confident. We thought, we were going to win the game then. So we started celebrating. Typical football fans, you start celebrating too early. And then obviously as the game wore on, we had a player sent off. So we were down to 10 men, and Tampines Rovers obviously, they were chasing the game, and they got back in it. They became stronger and stronger. And as it went on, we kind of started to realise that it wasn't going to be our night. I do remember questioning a couple of the referees' decisions, which, again, typical football fan, that's what you do in the heat of the moment. But I saw them subsequently, and he got them right. He got the big calls right. So, fair play to him. He was right, I was wrong. But yeah, I mean, you said in the introduction to this, it was a roller coaster, and that's pretty much how it felt on the night. We went through the whole gamut of emotions. We'd gone 2-0 up. We were seemingly cruising. We seemed very comfortable. And then obviously the half-time incidents, we did enjoy it. And then as it wore on and the realisation kind of sunk in, and I think it went to extra time, didn't it?
Yeah.
So I think, we were thinking it was going to go to penalties again, and then obviously Tampines got the late winner, and it was like a kick in the stomach. I'm not going to lie, and it only really sunk home the next day because I think we struggled to get away from the ground after the match. There didn't seem to be any public transport, and we were just waiting at a bus stop for like hours and hours.
Yeah.
I think the delay probably didn't help. The fact that the match finished about 2 hours later than it was scheduled to finish. So we were stuck, and in the end, I think we managed to get some taxis to come and pick us up and take us back to the hostel. Some of the lads went out for the night. I didn't. I stayed in. I was too disappointed to go out. And then the following day, again, we were on the same flight as the team, and we were waiting in departures. And my friend Andrew, who'd actually been in Singapore doing something else, and he just coincidentally, and he was then travelling back on the same flight as us. So he'd been to the match, and he said, I remember him saying to me, he said, if we'd have won, they'd have had the trophy here with them now. And that's when it sunk in. It was like the following day, almost 24 hours later, and we're sitting there and everybody, and we would have had the cup, actually there at the airport with us, and we'd have all been taking photographs with it and all the rest of it. And I think that's really when it hit home the following morning. The disappointment of losing, and especially as having been in control of the game and 2-0 up.
And what were the players like? Because you traveled with the players, were they really downbeat, or were they still looking at the bright side?
Yeah, they were very disappointed. You could see they weren't their usual chirpy selves. I mean, there'd been such a build-up to the game as well. I mean, this was the other great thing, because, as I said earlier, getting information on Thai football in Thailand in English is very difficult. But obviously in Singapore, it's common. So I've still got all the clippings from the newspapers and everything. The local paper had a big supplement, like a 16-page supplement. There was loads of coverage, and that was great to see. I really enjoyed reading all that, the build-up. And then obviously we even though we'd lost, I bought all the papers the following day with the match reports and everything in. Got a nice little souvenir program and things. So yeah, that was a good thing. I keep everything. I'm renowned for being a bit of a hoarder, so I've got all these souvenirs still. And I think I've even got the little, because there'd only been like a dozen of us travelled. I think I can't remember. I don't think we paid for match tickets. I think the club actually paid for us to get in. So
That's nice.
I've got this little lanyard as well, and a match ticket, a VIP complimentary thing, which is nice to have.
That's nice. That's nice of the club to do so. I believe you wouldn't have much information on the Singaporean clubs that Chonburi played on the way to the final. So Tampines itself, prior to the final, you had any information on what kind of team they were or who to look out for?
Oh yeah, we were very aware of Singaporean football. I mean, because at that time, it was, along with the V-League, probably it was the biggest league in Southeast Asia. A lot of Thai players had been to play in Singapore, and we used to look quite enviously at your league and think, one day I hope we're as popular as the Singaporean league and as well organised and everything else. So we had quite a lot of knowledge of Singaporean football and Singaporean clubs. And again, programmes like Football Crazy and Top Corner, which were fantastic. I mean, they used to be on ESPN and Star once a week. And so people like Andy Penders and Des Corkill, all these guys, were fantastic at promoting the local game. And so we were quite knowledgeable about Singaporean football. And at the same time, like I said, they'd done this little feature on us. So we'd started to sneak little bits of Thai football onto the programme. Julian, the producer, had asked me if I could send, highlights from games. So I arranged with a local cameraman to go and take, record things, at matches, and they got onto these. So it was nice to have that relationship as well. So
An exchange.
yeah, we were fully aware of how good Singaporean football was, and what
At
we
that
were
time,
up.
the Tampines team was known as the Dad's Army. Were you aware
Yeah,
of that?
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say that it's a shame to lose to a team like that, because I mean experience plays a part as well. It's an important integral part to winning trophies and medals. They had the know-how to do it. But was it an extra kick in the teeth that you lost to a team like that? And also, there's also an interesting fact. One of the scorers for Tampines is a Thai player.
Yeah, that's right. That was hard to swallow. Definitely. Definitely. No, I mean there was no shame in losing the game. I think we'd probably gone into it as underdogs anyway, because like I said, the season, it was our first season in the top flight, and we hadn't done particularly well. We'd just done enough to kind of stay in the division. So we'd not really. I mean, it was only I think the experience we got in the Singapore Cup certainly helped lay the foundations for what we went on to achieve in the following 3 or 4 seasons. Playing against different opposition, and probably better opposition, if I'm being honest. Because, like I said, at that time, the Singapore League was still head and shoulders above the Thai League. So from our perspective, it definitely helped. I mean, I've said, on the night, I think there was an expectation. I think we went into the game expecting to win it. I think whether that was just, overconfidence or arrogance or whatever. So it was particularly disappointing to lose, especially in the manner that we did, because at one point I think we'd already started celebrating prematurely.
As you say, that's football fans, right?
Yeah.
There are fans that would celebrate prematurely. Some would be more cautious. Some will be superstitious, not to celebrate too soon. But yeah, there it goes, a mixed bag. Have you been to any other away trips like this with Chonburi? Overseas trips?
Sadly not. No, sadly not. This has been my own experience. I mean, all the AFC Champions League matches and AFC Cup games were midweek, and I was at work. It was always difficult to get away. I mean, I was very lucky. Even for these 2 games in Singapore, I was very lucky because my boss gave me special permission to have a couple of days off work. So, in fact, Mike, and the very unlikely chance that you're listening, thank you. I still appreciate that. So he was very kind to me. I think I probably made it up in other ways, doing Saturday mornings or something later on in the year. But yeah, it was frustrating because obviously, we did have a period where we were competing in Asian Cup competitions and not being able to go. I'd love to have gone. I really would, and say these 2 experiences going to Singapore were, still very memorable, and I've still got very, very fond memories of them. So it would have been great to kind of do a few more, but sadly, sometimes, work has to take precedence, doesn't it, over anything else? It's just the way of the world.
That's life.
Yeah.
So how's Chonburi doing today? And generally, how's Thai football today?
Well, Thai football's in a very healthy state, I think. Generally, they're getting their act together. I think it's probably fair to say, and I apologise to anyone from Singapore who'll be listening and watching this. I think it's fair to say we have overtaken the S League now, which did seem unthinkable years ago. The challenges Thai football faces really is Buriram United's dominance. I think that's not healthy. I don't think it's healthy in any league to have one team dominating in the way that they do. But that's something that other clubs have got to address, really. That's the situation. So it's up to them, I guess, to try and compete and work out ways how they can challenge. But overall, I think it's doing pretty well. I mean, we've got teams playing in ACL competitions and couple of new faces. I mean, Ratbury were probably one of the big success stories of last season. A club probably on a par with Chonburi in terms of fans and what they can hope to achieve. So they've done really well. Bangkok United seem to be getting stronger and stronger. BG Pathum United, formerly Bangkok Glass, who also played in the Singapore Cup, let's not forget.
Yeah.
I think they won it, weren't they? The first foreign team to win it. We were the first foreign team to get to the final. They were the first foreign team to win it. So yeah, I think overall it's healthy. Chonburi, we were relegated a couple of years ago, but thankfully only spent one season down in T2, so we're back in the top flight now. We've not had the best of starts, but it's good to be back. I mean, I think following on from the success we had in the late noughties and early 2010s, it was always going to be difficult to sustain that, especially as other clubs became stronger and started investing more. And it was hard for us to compete once other clubs, became a lot better and better organised. So I'm just kind of hoping we can consolidate this season. It's always kind of bugs me when football fans say, mid-table finish, I'll be happy with that, because really you shouldn't settle for anything less than winning all the trophies that are on offer. But realistically, I think that's probably the best we can hope for this season. Maybe a top half finish would be quite satisfying, and hopefully a good cup run. But we're a long way short of the club we were 15 years ago. There's no doubt. But that's as I've said, that's twofold. It's us not being able to keep up and other clubs improving, really, and that's the way Thai football seems to be going. And I think overall it's fair to say it's in a healthy position. It's not perfect, but I don't think it ever will be. But
how you feel Chonburi can get back to the heights of the late noughties and the 2010s?
Oh, that's a big question. We'll need a lot of investment. As I've said, Buriram have that. They've and the more they win, the more success they have, the harder it's going to be to keep up with them, because the prize money alone and the sponsorship deals and the amount of shirts they sell, competing with that for other clubs is difficult. And for a club like Chonburi, it's practically impossible, I would say. I think we're kind of now destined to be a mid-table club for as I don't know. It sounds so depressing when I'm saying it out loud, but for as far as I can see into the future, we need a massive sea change to get back to being anywhere near where we were in 15 years ago. And I just can't see it happening, sadly. I mean, we might have the odd season where we'll have a good run, perhaps a cup final or something. But in terms of challenging for the league, we're a long way off it. And unless somebody comes along and throws millions and millions of baht at it, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
Okay, it does sound depressing, but
it does, yeah.
Could youth development be a way out?
Yeah, I mean that is one good thing. We're still producing lots of good young players. I think the season we went down, they did tend to over-rely on young players. I think that was a definite policy of the club. We're not going to buy anybody. We're not going to spend money on bringing in expensive foreigners. We're going to try and build a team around our youngsters. And obviously it didn't work. You do need that experience. You do need some quality coming into the side. And I think they've learned a lesson from that. But it is, but again, the flip side of that is we'll probably have to sell a lot of these players in order to carry on. This is just the way of the world, isn't it now? The bigger clubs, the richer clubs are snapping up all the best talent. And so even if we are bringing through players, it's unlikely that they'll spend a long time with us. Someone will come in and wave a checkbook at them, and they'll be off. And that's what the club's doing to survive, really.
Do you enjoy football today?
I think so, on the whole, yes.
Okay.
But, I've got to say, I enjoy it less now we've got VAR. I think that's, yeah. I prefer to watch games that don't have it. So obviously, I'll watch Chonburi, and I kind of have to suck it up. But luckily, my team in England, Oldham Athletic, play in the 4th division, so there's no VAR. So I'm quite grateful for that. And I enjoy watching lower league football in Thailand as well. So I get to a lot of T3 games when I'm over, and of course it's not used there. So thankfully, the most of the games I get to see don't have it. So I enjoy that, and I enjoy Thai football. I mean, it's not just about what happens on the pitch. It's about everything around it, the whole day, the whole occasion, people that you meet. That will never stop. I think as long as Thai football carries on in the way that it is now, and doesn't get, and I can't really see it going the way that English football went, in terms of pricing fans out of the game and, just becoming too sterile. I don't think that'll happen. So yeah, Thai football's great. Go along, have a wonderful day out, meet people, enjoy the football. But at the end of the day, it's not always the result that matters. It's not always the game that matters. It's just the day out and what goes on around it, really, for me.
Yeah. I remember Oldham Athletic playing in the Premier League in the 90s. But which era of football do you enjoy the most? This is not just about Thai football, generally. Which era do you enjoy the most? Have you enjoyed the most, in fact?
That is such a difficult question to answer, because when I was younger, I don't know, because that's a hard question. Do I have to answer that? When I was little, I used to love going to football, and right back then, again, Oldham were in the 4th division, so I certainly wasn't a glory hunter. We're always near the bottom as well, and considering we have Man City and Man United on our doorstep, who again at that time were both winning league titles and winning European titles.
This is the 1960s.
I loved going to football when I was young. It just seemed a lot more exciting then. I think as you get older, you kind of see through things, don't you? And I don't know whether I'm looking back with rose-tinted glasses, but certainly my early memories of going to football with my mum and dad and family and friends are very fond memories of that. They were great times. And like I said, it certainly wasn't because we were winning everything in sight, because we weren't. It was just fun. And I think as well, something I really miss, and this is something that a lot of people of my generation seem to talk about, is that I could name, if you asked me now, if you put me on the spot, and I'm not a fan, never have been, but I could name you the Leeds United team from 1970. I could tell you the Liverpool team from 1973. I could tell you the Man United team that won the European Cup in 1968, the Man City team that won the FA Cup I'd struggle now to tell you 5 players who play for all those clubs put together. I really would. And I certainly couldn't identify them. So, and that's true of my own club as well. There's so much turnover these days. Players seem to come and go. And, I can remember from my youth, someone who played for Oldham, they'd been there for 10, 15 years. And, I could tell you every team that played in every match from the 1969-70 season. I couldn't tell you who's playing this afternoon. Seriously. So I think in that respect, I much preferred football then. And I think you had more, the managers, as we call them. I mean, it's coaches now and technical advisors and all the rest, directors of football, all that nonsense.
Yeah.
The managers we had, you Matt Busby, Bill Shankly, Don Revie, Bob Paisley, Brian Clough, all these, they were proper people. They seemed like they seem like the people who'd live next door. You know, the man who lived across the road. That's Bill Shankly. You know, and I don't think that happens now certainly in English football. They seem so far removed from my experience of, you know, we did actually used to have my mum and dad's best friend was Harry Dowd and his wife, and Harry played for Man City, you know, in their very successful period in the late 60s, early 70s, then came to play for England. But he was a plumber. You know, Saturday mornings when City were at home, you know, he'd be working, and then he'd have to knock off at sort of 12 o'clock and go and play in front of 50,000 people at Main Road for the league champions or whatever, and then he'd be back at work in the evening if he hadn't finished the job, you know, and that's unthinkable now. And I think it's things like that we kind of seem to have lost. And yeah, so that's a very long-winded answer, and I think there's probably an element of rose-tinted glasses, but I think certainly between the ages of when I first became aware of going to football and up till I was about sort of 13 or 14 was probably my, you know, when I kind of just devoured everything connected to football. You know,
I can resonate to that, because for my generation it would be the 90s and the noughties. So that is for our generation. That's why, you know, this show has been made for that generation, the 90s and the noughties. We loved covering football from that era because of the same reason as you. We can name the players from the 90s and the noughties, every single team in the Champions League, in the Premier League, in the Italian League, whichever league. We can name the players. But today, as you mentioned, you know, we struggle. We would struggle. So, yeah, different generations, but same feeling.
Yeah, it could be an age thing then. You know, like I say, I just completely devoured anything to do with football.
Yeah, true. We used to do that as well. Yeah.
And then once I kind of hit 13, 14, I developed other interests, and I guess, you know, I've never really recovered from that. Although I could tell you the Chonburi team who won the league in 2007. So
all right, that's nice. Okay, Dale, it's been fun speaking to you, and thank you a lot. Thank you for reaching out to us and, you know, getting in touch to be on the show. I hope you enjoyed the SG60 episode anyways. Do keep in touch. I wish you all the best with your podcast. I wish Chonburi the best. I hope to see them climbing up the league table, maybe punching above their weight a bit. And
thank you. It's been great fun. I've really enjoyed it, and like I said, you know, very, very happy memories of those trips to Singapore. Really, you know, great times, and thank you, and good luck with your show as well. It's nice. I think it's great. I mean, I'm all for, you know, fans promoting the local game, and yeah. So thank you. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Right. Cheers. My pleasure. And this is me, Ras, signing out. Ciao.